And we are live from Studio I.
Oh, Indy?
The I stands for Indy. The I stands for inside of Radio Row.
I thought it was going to be C because we have A and B.
Well, when
and this would be C for Combine.
C is when we're at our houses. That's Studio C. And
C
then
for Casa?
Studio M was in Mobile, and now we're at Studio I here in Indianapolis.
Inside Indianapolis, Indiana.
Oh,
Yep.
Triple I.
Triple I.
Triple I. I think that's an old offense that they used to run, the Triple I.
Yes, exactly. And there was no such thing as a passing game back then.
Yeah, and maybe when Justin Outen learns about the passing game, like he said he wants to do, he'll learn about the Triple I and how it evolved into the passing offense.
It's very true. Good thing they've got Nathaniel Hackett to get that passing offense going.
They do have Nathaniel Hackett, and they do have George Paton, and both of those guys were here in Indianapolis, talked with us today. I'm still buzzing a little bit over talking to Nathaniel Hackett. It's not possible to really talk to him without getting a little fired up.
I mean, it really is like you just drank a cup of coffee when you talk to him.
I did that too, so
Yeah,
maybe that's what has me fired up.
What is that, three? No, cup number
That's
three
just
today?
two. That's just two.
Oh, okay.
I'm actually drinking it hot. That's when you know I'm desperate.
That's very true.
But let's talk about this a little bit. I guess we'll go chronological here, even though I really want to talk about Nathaniel Hackett. We'll go traditional and talk George Paton first. Mace, what was your biggest takeaway from what George Paton had to say today?
I mean, he's not going to reveal much in terms of details. I mean, clearly they're doing their work on the quarterbacks. It was interesting that when we got him off to the side, the small group that was just local media, he mentioned that they don't have multiple free agent quarterbacks on their radar, but that Teddy Bridgewater is still somebody they're thinking about. And he said, "You know how I feel about him."
Exactly.
Right, and we know he thinks very highly of Bridgewater and has since they drafted him in Minnesota in 14.
He said that directly to Jeff Legwold, which I thought was even more he looked right at him and was like, "And you know how I feel about him," as if they've talked about this before.
Right, and on top of that, that was not even a question about Teddy Bridgewater.
It was
he
about
brought
free
up
agent
Teddy
quarterbacks
himself, and then not only does he like Teddy, the coaching staff likes Teddy as well, is what he said. We know the last coaching staff liked Teddy, and this one likes Teddy as well. Guys, I'm looking at a tweet that I had that just said that, and it had over 150 responses. I think people are a little.
You think people are really excited about this?
That. Yeah, exactly.
That's sick,
that's where
dude.
I
I love seeing everyone get real fired up about Teddy coming back. Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. This is an entertainment game, and we talk a lot about you can't be, for lack of a better term, a slave to what the fans think. But the Broncos could not get away with bringing Teddy Bridgewater back as their quarterback next year. In terms of excitement, in terms of fan response, in terms of trying to get this fan base excited for Nathaniel Hackett, right? You're trying to get them excited for a new era of Denver Broncos football. And so I think if they were to go back to Teddy, it would be a really bad decision, even if it might be a better football decision than an alternative option. In fact, Drew Lock being an option, which we can talk a little bit more about this in a second, but he doesn't feel like an option at all based on the way they talk about him, in my opinion. But to me, it's even if that would be a worse football move, it's better for excitement, and it's not that much better. But, if you were to go get Marcus Mariota, that's better. You know what I'm trying to say?
It says different, right?
I don't
Is it
know,
anything
though.
different is good? Is that kind of what you're saying?
That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's necessarily the truth. I'm saying that is the way it will be perceived.
Yeah.
But here's how it would have to be sold more so from us than the Broncos, because they're not going to sell it this way, is if you want the smallest investment in the quarterback this year, because George Paton did say when evaluating quarterbacks this year, he does look at next year's quarterback class.
Great question from you.
Oh, thank you. And understanding that they don't know where they're going to be, but he did say that. So we know that they know Bryce Young's out there. They know C.J. Stroud's out there. A stronger quarterback class is out there. So what you don't want to do is, if you're looking toward next year, you don't want to go and trade a first-round pick for Jimmy Garoppolo or Kirk Cousins and then go pay them $40 million. And you may be paying Marcus Mariota $20, $25 million. So the way that Teddy Bridgewater makes sense is if he's 2 years, $10 million, $12 million guaranteed, and it very much is just another bridge. I don't know if you can have a bridge in back-to-back years like that, but that's what it would be. But, I mean, you're so right. It would not be sexy for this year, but I think it would be George Paton telling us we're looking to next year's draft.
I mean, what's interesting, like, if to
doesn't
talk
that
about
hurt that though?
Yeah.
So, sorry, Mace. Doesn't that hurt in terms of looking to next year's draft, bringing back Teddy?
In terms of draft position, it does, but I think it would show that it's very much a one-year solution again.
Okay.
I mean, like, to just kind of mention Drew Lock for a moment, Paton did say they have Drew Lock under contract, and then not long after says, we know we need better play out of the quarterback position.
Yeah.
I mean, and that would lead me to say, okay, well then you'd want me to be looking elsewhere other than Teddy if you need better play. But when you start looking at the options, and you mentioned the cost, I mean, if you could get, let's say Mariota was $20 million guaranteed and Bridgewater was $12 million guaranteed. I mean, I know it's not the decision that people want, but it's sensible.
Yep.
Because you can take that $8 million in savings and go upgrade your edges. And we heard a lot today about the need to get more pass rush off the edge.
Real quick, why would Mariota be so much more expensive than Teddy? I mean, he hasn't started in years. He hasn't started in years.
The unknown, though, and his dynamic ability, potentially.
You think that would actually you think his price, there's going to be an actual market for him?
Yes, I do. And I don't think Mace is too far off with potentially $20 million guaranteed.
What an insane.
I wouldn't do it.
What an insane league.
But it is insane, and we've talked about Drew Lock a tiny bit right now. Man, Mace, you mentioned it. When Nathaniel Hackett and George Paton talk about Drew Lock, not just today, and especially Justin out last week, it just feels like what they point to is he's under contract. So it's like, well, he's under contract, so that's what we have now. We did get one clip from Nathaniel Hackett today off to the side where he did say, I'm excited to work with Drew. That's really the only sign of hope for Drew was that, but it does feel like Drew is certainly on the back burner. And just he's not in their plans to be the starting quarterback. That's really what it feels like.
I think we would have gotten a similar answer if we'd asked him about Brett Rippon.
Yes.
I think I think he would say on any player on the roster right now, Nathaniel Hackett would say he's excited to work with them. There's an optimistic side to him. And I think he really does believe that in terms of as people. I think, and he talked about, Drew Lock, of course, recently getting engaged. I think it's nothing, it's not that he doesn't have, it's not that he's being kind of impersonal. If anything, like he views them all as people, but then you step away from that and you view him as a quarterback, and I think he, at this point, probably does not see potential long-term starter in Drew Lock. Again, we're kind of reading between the lines of what we've heard over the last 8 days or so.
Right.
But I think that's probably the accurate conclusion here.
And you dive further into it and you just listen to the quotes. It's all about filling that position. It's not about like, can we improve that position? It's no, can we fill that position?
Right.
And that's like the most telling part to me is to them it's an empty hole right now.
Yep.
And they have to fill the position. George Paton was asked, would you rather fill the position through the draft or through free agency? And this was my biggest takeaway from the whole thing is he said, we want the best guy, whether it's through the draft, through free agency, or through a trade. Now, trade was not brought up in the question at all, but it was brought up in the answer. And I think if you're looking for any sort of hints as to the Broncos, are they really going for the biggest, best thing? To me, that was it. That was that him essentially admitting that they're going to be going after these guys. And while we know that to be true, it kind of gives me the feeling that they're in the same place as us.
Yeah.
They're sitting there just hoping that one of these quarterbacks tries to force their way out.
And the other thing is key to the trade thing. Paton asked about trading multiple first-round picks to get the quarterback, mentioned how much draft capital they have overall as they get into the middle and late rounds, and that giving them the flexibility to sacrifice multiple first-round picks, especially when he left saying that he thought the draft was really strong 30-70. Yep. So the Broncos, and that kind of means, okay, maybe you are trading a couple of first-round picks over the next couple of years, but in this draft, you're sitting there with 2 picks in the 30-70 range, and you could probably, if you want to get another one, you could take those third-rounders and package them too.
And after today, I really do feel like, because I was a little concerned, would George Paton be willing to move on from first-round picks that he really covets? Because we know he's a guy, he wants 10 picks in every single draft, which again he said today. Would he be willing to trade some of those for a quarterback? And after today, I feel very confident that he would be willing to do that. And it's so obvious to us, but sometimes these football guys, especially, I mean, George Paton's a huge draft guy. He doesn't want to give up on first-round picks. But after today, I feel very confident that he would, and that is the smart thing when you can go and get a Russell Wilson, a Kyler Murray, and Aaron Rodgers potentially. You give up those picks.
Hey, we know he'd think about Kyler because one thing we learned from both Paton and Hackett is they're not concerned about height.
Thank you.
Thank God. Yeah, I mean, they both said we used to.
Yep.
And I'm glad that they're willing to evolve. Oh, gosh, what were you just saying about – the draft picks. I think what I learned today is that he doesn't necessarily just love draft picks to draft things. Right. He loves draft picks for what they allow you to do, and he said that. We have the ammunition to where if we need to make a big trade, we can do that and still have draft capital.
Yep, exactly. Just like me and my Madden team. I already have 3 first-round picks for next year because I like the flexibility that it gives me. And I
Can't
really
wait to
do
see
like
those
that.
players never develop on your team.
That's very true. That's going to happen. That's why I'm going to trade him. Just like George Paton, and he pointed to last year. What did he do with some of his draft capital? He moved up to go and get Javonte Williams in the second round, and that's something that we're going to see a lot. Not just before the draft, but on draft day, he said, is when he's going to be making some deals.
And manipulated that third round to come up with both Baron Browning and Quinn Miners.
Yep.
Because of their willingness to trade back as well. And part of that is you've got the flexibility when the draft board is falling a certain way in the third round, in the fourth round. If you say, okay, well, there are 4 players I like at position X and there are 3 players I like at position Y, and the chances of one of those guys still being there, if we move down 15 picks, is pretty good. And that's, I think, a positive about the way he attacks, especially the middle rounds, is that I don't think he focuses on one guy. I think he says, okay, there's a cluster of 3 or 4 guys that we feel like could help us, and if one's there, we'll get him. Mm-hmm. And any one of them falls, and in the case of last year's draft, they were still able to get Browning and Miners, and I think they're very happy with how that turned out.
Quickly, a shout-out to our presenting sponsor, MSU Denver Online, msudenver.edu/online, where you can scope out all they have to offer. Zach, were you about to say something?
I was going to ask you guys a question.
Oh, please do. I love questions.
Yes.
You do? Okay, so it's kind of my job, I'm a question guy. What do you think, after talking to George and Nathaniel today, we're 2 weeks away from free agency, 2 months away from the draft. What do you guys think their plan is at quarterback?
I think Plan A still starts with Aaron Rodgers.
Starts with an A, yep.
And then Plan B would probably be RW.
Yep.
I was trying to find a B in Russell Wilson. You just can't do that. So I mean,
RW.
Well, he would no. Plan B is for Badger because he's a Wisconsin Badger.
Yeah, there you go.
So Plan B is for the Badger and Russ. Plan C. Dare I say maybe it's re-signing Bridgewater and then drafting a guy?
Oh, no. Well, I don't understand the re-sign Bridgewater part of that. Just makes no sense to me.
Oh, it makes no sense to me either. You're burning $10 to $20 million per year to do that, and it's just going to be a guy that sits on the bench for, like, Teddy's going to sit on the bench for 10 weeks after he starts the first 6 games.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, Drew Lock is certainly the more cost-effective option if you're looking for a British quarterback. There's no doubt, but it's just a question of they're looking for attributes where the quarterback can be a bit of a mentor, and they may not see Drew Lock as someone who can be that, whereas Bridgewater could. But if that's the plan, if that is the idea that Plan C is okay, we're going to go in the draft and we're going to have a mentor. I'd rather they take longer looks at guys like Ryan Fitzpatrick even coming off injury.
I'd be in on that.
And one of the things
going for
or not so much a mentor, but Gardner Minshew, if you decide to go the trade route as someone that you see where he goes.
And that was my biggest takeaway. I agree with you, Mace. I think Aaron Rodgers. I think trade is plan number 1 because through trade you can pretty much get a more known commodity. And I think with where George Paton's been with the Vikings, look, he tried to go the draft with Christian Ponder. That didn't work out. He tried Teddy Bridgewater. It seemed like it was going to work out. But what has worked out with Minnesota at quarterback? nothing really. I mean, nothing has truly worked out. And they tried to get the closest thing to a sure thing in Kirk Cousins, but they signed him in free agency, not a trade. And so I think he thinks trade is the way that you can land the big guy now. So I think that is plan A right now. And maybe it's broader than just the couple of guys we've been talking about, because George Paton, I believe, hinted at something of trading for guys that we haven't talked about yet and that aren't that obvious. And so I think we kind of need to open up who we're looking at, because I think George Paton may be trying to look down an alley that we haven't explored yet.
Sounds like Carson Wentz to me.
No. Okay, we're going to run this back.
Oh, I really.
We are in Indy right now.
Gardner Minshew would be another option falling under that.
I've had 2 conversations today with people about Carson Wentz, and he's going to be just good enough to get you beat if you bring him in. It's the old thing they used to say about Steve DeBerg back in the day. And you look at him last year, and there are some moments he looked really good, but when it really mattered, he melted down. Like, you take even...
He had the best pick six of the year.
Oh. Like, you look, for example, at the next to last game they played here in Indy against the Raiders. And the Colts, all the Colts had to do was win one of their last 2. And, of course, we know how they bombed out in Week 18 in Jacksonville. But Week 17, that game against the Raiders, it was very simply Derek Carr made throws that Carson Wentz couldn't. And that's the difference between maybe Carr isn't great, but he's very good.
Sure is.
You can build around him. A quarterback that you build around and then one that you don't.
Yeah.
And I feel like with Wentz, I think we've seen that he's not going to get to that level for whatever reason. There's indications that maybe he's not the greatest team guy in the world. I would hate that. I'd shudder at that.
You guys want to know what made me sad today?
What?
Nathaniel Hackett, in talking about what he likes in a quarterback, mentioned some things that he's mentioned before. He mentioned toughness as number 1. He mentioned intelligence. Yeah, I was like smartness. That shows my intelligence. Intelligence is number 2.
Yep.
Accuracy.
And then he brought in a new one that we hadn't heard from him before. Accuracy is number 3. Yep. And then this is what really threw a dagger into my heart, is he then said, and if you get an athlete on top of it, that's a nice bonus. And I'm like, oh, no. First of all, he pretty much just took Malik Willis right out of the mix.
And brought Kenny Pickett right into the mix,
He sure did bring Kenny Pickett into the mix. We'll talk about that. I think he's back out of the mix from the later conversation we had with George Paton. We'll talk about that in a second.
He might be in the mix for one, but not the other.
Yep.
They might not be on the same page on this one.
I think it's possible.
Yeah.
So anyways, he says that if you get an athlete on top of it, that's a bonus. I was like, and I meant to follow up with him afterwards, and I just forgot because he was so exciting that I lost my train of thought. But I wanted to follow up with him on that because Mac Jones excluded, the guys that have succeeded young in their careers so far from a rookie standpoint have been the athletic type. And I was going to ask him, how do you qualify that up against that being only a bonus for you? But maybe that even points more towards the trade route and not the rookie route.
And he didn't say arm talent either. It's accuracy, but not arm talent.
Yeah, I mean, this just has Mac Jones written all over it. If Nathaniel Hackett was the coach last year, the Broncos are drafting Mac Jones with the 9th overall pick.
I see the sparkle in your eye there, Zach.
I would love it. I would absolutely love it. But, right? Isn't Mac Jones his perfect quarterback from these 3 traits?
Everything you just said, yeah. I don't know specifically about the toughness part.
I don't think you can knock him for it.
No, you definitely wouldn't say he's not tough.
Right.
But I'm just saying, he lived a very cush lifestyle behind the Alabama offensive line, and then Josh and Bill are really good at making sure the quarterback gets the ball out of their hands before they get hit.
You kind of look at the toughness thing. If you look at this year's draft class, all of a sudden that's probably the Sam Howell conversation right there.
And I think Sam Howell is absolutely in this conversation because I do think Sam Howell has the intelligence. I do think he has the accuracy as well.
Especially deep.
And I think just like he was viewed before last season as the number 1 quarterback, I think in the Broncos' eyes, Sam Howell is going to be right up there, if not number 1.
And the interesting thing is that we hear occasional buzz about Kenny Pickett with the Broncos, how they might, except for that except for the hand size, they're intrigued by him. And we hear about Matt Corral. We don't hear Sam Howell's name, and maybe it's possible, kind of like we didn't hear much about Pat Surtain last year, that for all we know, Sam Howell is somebody they really like that checks a lot of their boxes, but they may play it really cool with him.
And George Paton said today he may do that again this year. They played it cool with Surtain. He said, I don't need to go to every pro day or,
Especially if they could take those 2 second-round picks and package them in the late one and get Howell somewhere in the 20s. So
for a second first-round pick?
I'm saying they take their 2 second-rounders and move back up into the last 8 picks, and maybe even a future third-rounder, and move back up into the end of round 1 and pick Howell somewhere in the 20s. I can see that happening.
And, guys, I got to say there is a little buzz about that already at the Combine. It is packaging a couple of those day 2 picks in order to move back into the first to get their quarterback. To me, it feels like the Drew Lock situation where they passed on him not only at 10 because they traded back, then they passed on him at 20 because they got Noah Fant, then they passed on him when they drafted Dalton Reisner. So they passed on him 3 different times.
Yeah, a little bit.
And that would just kind of remind me, it's your freaking quarterback. If you like him, take him at 9. Heck, if you like him, trade 2 of those second rounders or one of those second rounders.
Forget the word like. It's do you love him?
Right, and then you move up in the draft. You don't just stay at 9. So, man, I don't like hearing that.
Of course, if you love a guy, sometimes you can pick him too high. I mean, who too high? I mean, Daniel Jones, for example. Dave Gettleman was in full bloom love.
I don't mind it, though. I like the conviction that they had there.
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't worked out so far.
Oh, it certainly hasn't. But I like that he stood by his guy.
But he's also maybe now standing by him too long.
Yeah. Potentially.
Which is better than not buying in the first place. Real quick, speaking of Daniel Jones, tiny hands.
You talking about me?
No, I'm talking about Daniel Jones.
I got surprisingly large hands.
I don't.
Yeah, no, I don't. No. I definitely don't.
A guy who fumbles the ball a whole hell of a lot.
Yeah.
And I actually don't know were his hands tiny? Or does
Daniel
he just
Jones?
fumble it a lot?
I have no idea. Yeah, just fumble.
It could be one or the other. But you, Mace, you asked George Paton today.
By the way, Daniel Jones 9 3/4 inches.
Is that
big
small?
Enough.
That's
big
fine.
Enough.
It's fine. I mean, 9 inches is considered the baseline. You don't want me smaller than that.
Okay.
I mean,
right.
Can he pick it like 8?
Like Drew is 9 1/4, I believe, right?
Oh wow. Okay.
Like
all
Drew
right.
Lock has smaller hands for a quarterback.
Interesting. Okay. So you asked, how much do you take into account the measurables like height and hand size?
Yes.
He was quick to dismiss height, but he pointed out that hands. He didn't, I guess, directly say it, but about as close as you can get to directly saying. He said, "I do care about hand size."
Yes,
don't care about height. Do care about hand size.
And that is something that I've heard in the background midway through last year is that George Paton's a big hand size guy, and so that you said earlier that brings Kenny Pickett into the mix, and that's something that knocks him out of it. That's going to be a big hurdle for Kenny Pickett to get over, and that kind of just shows you the very traditional scouting background that George Paton came up through, and I like that he's okay with not focusing on height anymore. He's evolved to that, but it's pretty clear hand size isn't something he's going to budge on.
Yeah, and in particular, what Paton said, quote, "The league's changed. Now you want a little more athlete. I think height, and it's kind of dismissing it, but hand size is big."
Hand size.
Or it's small.
No, he was literally
big,
saying
small.
Yeah.
He was saying that that's the baseline hand size for him. Big.
Big.
Hand size, big.
Big. Do you think he just measures it when he gets in these interviews with these quarterbats? He just goes, "Put your hand up to mine."
Give me the hand.
Listen, I mean, this is why.
Get out. Too small. Out.
Should we have you guys measure?
I mean, we don't have. We need a tape measure or a ruler.
Yeah,
I'm checking in at 11 inches.
Let's just. Can we go? So,
Okay.
all right.
I
got you by a little bit.
I got you.
BK says he'll grab a tape measure.
Mace got you guys are gonna be close.
Holy cow!
Here we
Let's
go.
go.
Oh, Ryan has a little bit.
Little bit. You got
tiny bit.
you
Got a
got
little
probably
on
like a 1/4 inch on me, I think. So we're close. Zach, I mean,
14-inch hands.
yeah.
Crazy.
So Zach, you're not going to be on the Broncos' radar, I'm afraid. I'm sorry, buddy.
That's a bummer. You're gonna really be missing out on intelligence and accuracy.
That's tough. I want athleticism and hand size.
Yeah.
That's interesting though, because what you just said, Mace, reminded me of something that I was thinking during these press conferences, which is I'm a little bit surprised by this, but I don't think George Paton and Nathaniel Hackett have the same type Exactly. And I don't think they're exactly on the same page in terms of what they're looking for in a quarterback. I just talked about how Nathaniel Hackett broke my heart when he barely mentioned athleticism.
Mm-hmm.
You just mentioned that that was the first thing that Paton said when he was talking about, the measurables.
Right, yeah. The least changed. Now you want a little more athlete.
Boom.
Was his exact quote when there was. It's probably, by the way, this was the stuff that was in the press conference. So if you're wondering why you maybe didn't see it this morning, watching the Broncos stream, and I find there are always more interesting things that come out from the off to the side that we get when we're here,
and it's
the
cool.
locals only.
Shout out to the Broncos and their PR for doing this because they do it just for Denver people.
Yep.
And that's the cool thing is like, okay, so you get the national and they have to answer some weird national questions. Then you wait a little, they do their radio shows, and they pull it off to the side just for Denver media. So shout out to Broncos PR for setting that up for us. But I think you're right. We do get a little more insight from those.
So who should make the decision? Who should make the decision on who the quarterback is? Is it Nathaniel Hackett or is it his boss, George Paton?
Or are you trying to say, okay, which quarterback has the crossover on the Venn diagram between the two?
Well, I mean, what if I guess Kenny Pickett wouldn't. So you'd cross him off.
I want full bloom love from someone.
From both?
No, I don't think we're going to get that.
What if one person is in love?
It has to be George Paton.
I would say it has to be Nathaniel Hackett.
Here's why I say George Paton. Nathaniel Hackett said it himself. My job is to make the scheme for the quarterback. George Paton's job is to get him the best quarterback.
Yep. So then you're getting a guy that isn't athletic, as athletic.
No, you're getting a guy who is athletic because that's what George Paton wants.
Maybe it's Desmond Ritter. We haven't talked a lot about him.
In the second.
He was so bad at the Senior Bowl.
He was.
The game film's good, though, on him.
Yeah.
How about this? 49ers Jimmy Garoppolo is expected to soon undergo shoulder surgery. That's going to sideline him till the summer. Maybe this makes it less likely that he's traded to the Broncos.
Why?
If it's going to sideline him till the summer.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And
but didn't he follow up that and say he's expected to be traded in the next month?
Did he? I don't know.
That's not expected to expect his tradable.
If and when a trade is consummated, Garoppolo would be available to begin working with the new coaching staff and medical staff.
Mm-hmm. Okay, all right. So,
or maybe this drives his price down a little bit.
He's basically out for OTAs.
Yep.
They're saying resume throwing sometime prior to July 4th. So probably it's the dreaded mental reps that you'd get in May and June.
I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't trade it for a guy to bring him into a brand new offense with brand new teammates, and then he can't work with them until training camp.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
I just wouldn't do it because it's not the quarterback.
I wouldn't either. But we sometimes forget how short training camp is. It feels like a month. It's 2 weeks.
Yep. Essentially.
And that is not enough time to build true chemistry.
Right. No.
So I was already out, and now I'm even more out.
Yep. And maybe that's something that takes him out. But, guys, I do think we need to open the window of who we're looking at to be the Broncos quarterback because I think it is trade, and then free agency. There's one guy, and he talked about how he likes Teddy Bridgewater, so free agency might just be Teddy. And then there's the draft.
Did he say that? He said there's one free agent?
He said there's not multiple guys. So, yes, that
so
essentially.
So it's just Teddy.
And what I'm not sure is, does he view Teddy as a free agent? Because he is a free agent, but he's still under contract for the next couple of weeks. So maybe there's two if you include Teddy.
Like, here's the quote. I wouldn't say multiple, but there are some ones as free agents that we like that are very appealing, including Teddy.
And
there's not multiple, and there is Teddy. So it's Teddy.
But there are some ones that Teddy's the guy. You know how I feel about Teddy, and the coaches watched him. They have a lot of good things to say about Teddy, the new coaches, and so we're just going to keep everything open at the quarterback position.
Man, it seems like he's blinded by love for Teddy. And it seems like he's going to be like that his entire life and in his entire career, right? Because he loved Teddy last year because of what he did in Minnesota.
Yes.
And he still loves Teddy for just the type of person. And Teddy's a fantastic guy, but maybe George feels really, really good going into free agency. If they can't land one of these guys, that Teddy's a great fallback
I think that's what we're talking about here is that he's a contingency plan.
That is so bad.
Maybe plan C is for contingency.
But how quick of a contingency plan? Because Teddy's not going to be sitting there after the draft.
No, I think it would have to be something that happened Look, I think Wilson and Rodgers, all this is going to happen in the next fortnight. Next 2 weeks.
Next fortnight.
Like at Wimbledon, they always refer to it as the fortnight because it's a 2-week competition.
I hate what you just said about him being blinded in love for Teddy Bridgewater.
Do you disagree?
That it's true. I don't know. I just really hope not.
Or maybe it's that he knows what he's getting with Teddy, whereas if you went the other quarterbacks that are kind of in that group in free agency, Mariota, Trubisky, Winston. Okay, he hasn't necessarily worked with them, but he's worked with Teddy.
But didn't
it's the whole cliche of the better the devil you know than the one you don't.
You mentioned earlier like getting Teddy for $12 million. Didn't Teddy's camp come out and say he wants 25?
Do you think he's going to get 25 though?
Well, and that goes back to George Paton saying sometimes it's nice to let guys go see their value.
Yeah.
And that was his way of saying sometimes guys think they're worth more than they are.
Yeah.
And so that could be an option here. Let him hit free agency. No, nothing out there. Come back to the Broncos for half of what you thought.
And one of the
worth.
things that he continued on saying after that was, sometimes you're going to lose guys when you do that. If you are okay losing your starting quarterback, you should not bring him back to be your starting quarterback.
If you're okay with losing him, he isn't your quarterback.
Exactly. No, I don't care if you do that with Josie Jewell or a backup line. That's totally fine. Just like they did with Kareem Jackson. They cut him. He found out that he wasn't a $10 million safety on the open market. He came back for $5 million, and he found out his true value there. That wasn't the Broncos telling him he was worth half. He got to find that out for himself. If you do that with your quarterback, he should not be your quarterback.
All right, we'll be hanging out at some bars here in Indianapolis tonight. Big part of the plans, at least my personal plans later. We won't be at the DNVR bar, but that doesn't mean that you can't be at the DNVR bar later tonight. Got to be some sports on. I'm in indie mode. I don't even know what's happening outside of this building right now. Couldn't even tell you if the sun is up. But the Avalanche are in action tonight, according to the homie BK across the way. OG podcast listeners will remember him. And
against the Islanders
you can
tonight.
head down. That's a good game. Avs Isles, go hang out at the DNVR bar. Get yourself an RK special or any of the other great beers we have on tap. Get yourself a chicken sandwich or the nachos. Plenty of great options down there, so go down, hang out. The last Avs game that we went to there on Saturday was immaculate. I haven't told this story yet on the show. We leave Spencer and Kylie's wedding.
Yep.
We hop on a party bus. Congratulations to Spencer and Kylie. We hop on a party bus. We're going crazy on the party bus, playing sing-alongs, whatever. We walk to the bar, and literally as we're opening the door, the first note of All the Small Things plays. The whole bar is singing, going crazy. It was packed wall to wall. We bring in a whole group of people that plays. Everyone's singing. It was amazing. Then the whole bar cheered for them. That was amazing as well. So that's the type of place you walk into when you go to the DNVR bar.
And you can check out Ryan Green's vlogs to see it if you aren't able to go in.
Amen. And shout out to Allie on the sticks here producing for us, making it look nice and pretty as we're here on Radio Row. And RG's roaming around getting great content as well. So we've got a whole squad down here.
Definitely a better setup than our Senior Bowl setup.
Slightly better than that.
Everything looks a little better
We're here on Radio Row.
Exactly.
And this Saturday, I know what's going on. It is a big UFC 272 between Covington and Masvidal.
Yes.
Yes, there we go. And it's a big one, and it's really big over at DraftKings. If you bet $1, you will win on the main event. You'll win $100 no matter what happens. It can be a knockout. One guy can win, the other guy can win. It doesn't matter.
You just have to play.
You just have to put $1 on the main event. You get $100 in free bets. Also, make sure to bet on the Avs tonight. Get in on that action. So head to the App Store now. Download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now. And use promo code DNVR when you sign up to get this 1-to-100 offer. Of course, DraftKings is the official sports betting partner of the UFC. Must be 21 or older, Colorado only. New customers only. Minimum $5 deposit. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700.
We have our pick of the week today, or are we doing that?
We're not doing that. I think we're just focusing on what's going on at the Combine right now.
Oh,
Sounds great.
Darn, I had one.
No,
You had
let's
one?
do it.
Let's do it.
Yeah,
Got it
let's
right,
get
Nate.
into DraftKings Sportsbook pick of the week.
What the heck? We got the FA Cup going on in England right now, right? The Cinderella
Do you know
story.
what FA stands for?
Football Association.
All right.
Yes.
That was free agency.
The other
Free
FA.
agency cup. That would be sweet.
The other FA. But the Cinderella story right now is Boreham Wood from the 5th-tier National League, which has made the round of 16. They're going to be playing at Everton. I know some of my friends are big-time Everton fans. I'm going to take 19-10 odds that Boreham Wood, they're not going to win, but they're going to put exactly 1 goal on the board.
They just have to score. You get 2-1.
Yes.
Or almost 2-1.
They get they get exactly 1 goal. It's just about 2-1.
Oh, exactly
Right.
1 goal.
I mean, I don't think this is a side that's capable of exploding, but I think they're going to have their moment tomorrow night. So I'm going to take that exactly 1 goal, 19-10 odds.
I'm about to find out if we can bet on DraftKings. Oh, we can bet on DraftKings here.
Yeah, I think Indiana's. Indiana, Illinois. I think Ohio as well. You go to Wisconsin, on the other hand, they're
Bummer.
they're fuddy-duddies up there.
I try to only go to places that have legal sports gambling. Helps me stay out of trouble. All right, let me look what I got here. NHL, we're going to the Avs. Pick of the night, Avs Islanders. Wow, Avs heavily favored. So to get any value on this at all, we're going to have to give up a 1.5, which is fine with me. We'll take the Avs on the puck line, -115. Book it, Avs by 4.
Oh,
I
okay.
absolutely love that. Guys, what have I missed in the past couple of days? Over at DraftKings Sportsbook, Evan Neal is now the favorite, -115 to be the first pick in the NFL draft. What happened? Why is there a switch from Aiden Hutchinson and Thibodeau? Those guys were the number 1 and number 2.
All about protecting Trevor Lawrence. I mean, everything is about him right now. And the Jags do have a pretty good pass rusher off the edge in Josh Allen, although certainly you have to think about pairing him with Hutchinson and seeing where it could go. But
Yep.
but the
Didn't work for the Broncos.
the investment, everything the Jaguars are doing is about maximizing Trevor Lawrence, protecting Trevor Lawrence, and so that's why I think Neal is shooting up, at least in their estimation.
And in honor of Joe Burrow doing what he did this year in the Cincinnati Bengals, going from +125.
Oh, here you go.
I'm going to sprinkle a little bit on the Jacksonville Jaguars at +10,000. I can't get over that. And, of course, I mean, this
You
is a
can't get
shout-out.
over the worst team in the NFL back-to-back years being +10,000 to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, they've set up with Allie's coach.
I do love Doug.
Yeah, they've got Doug in the building. So sprinkle a little bit on that.
He's actually in this building
He
as
is.
we
Yep.
speak. I
He
just
is.
saw
Yep.
him walk by.
So he's doing his presser today then, huh?
Yes, he is.
Well, he was on NFL Network or something.
Okay.
There you go.
And I'll give a more serious one. Unfortunately, Packers to win the NFC North at -145 right now. Aaron Rodgers hasn't officially made his decision, something we're going to talk about probably tomorrow. But I like those odds right now.
And finally, if you don't want to head down to the DNVR bar, but you still want to watch the Avs game tonight, you might be in big trouble because greedy billionaires are keeping you from being able to do that. But not Evoca TV. You got to check out our new partner, Evoca TV. They are a streaming service that has Altitude on there. So if you want to watch the games, you want to be able to follow the teams, and you want to at least do it legally, Evoca TV is a great option for you. And this is something that people have been wanting for a while, right? How can I get the games without having to deal with these cable companies, without having to make the switch, without having to get DirecTV, which, you say what you will about them. But Evoca TV, a great option. Your price is locked in for 2 years. You can rent a receiver for $5 a month or purchase one straight up for $250. Great stuff. And they've got AT&T Sports Rocky Mountain coming soon, so you'll be able to watch the Rockies on there too. So you'll be able to watch all the teams.
It's what we need. It is what we need in Colorado.
Exactly. So check out Evoca TV, a sweet new partner that we have here at DNVR.
Hey, if you sign up for Evoca, maybe we can do something about that .19 rating that the Nuggets are getting for their games right now.
I wonder if they would count that. Hopefully they do.
I hope they do too. I mean,
we know they don't count the illegal streaming numbers, but I assume we're number 1 in the league.
I mean, when the Orlando Magic is getting a higher local rating than you are, and by the way, the Magic is having some of the same local issues with their provider, Bally Sports, as we're seeing with Altitude.
As you guys know, I'm very
Comcast,
protective of Denver and Denver sports fans.
No way.
And when that news came out there, people were like dragging Nuggets fans because they just think like, oh, they have the best player in the world and they don't even care.
It's not their fault.
I didn't know what to do with myself because I was like, I need to fight every single person who is saying this. They don't understand the truth. Like, I'm not going to be reply guy who goes in. You don't understand. That's not that's not how it works. But that was tough because that was a Wall Street Journal that came out with that or someone. They didn't leave an asterisk on there that said, like, people in Denver, I think over 65% of people in Denver have Comcast or Xfinity. So 65% of people in Denver couldn't even watch it if they want to.
And a lot of people don't have a choice. When you live in an apartment building, they tell you what internet, what TV service you need to get. So there's a lot of people who can't switch to other
and now they
things
can.
like network. Exactly.
Ivaka.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about that at your apartment building if you work with Ivaka. By the way, ton of people watching, not a lot of thumbs up. Hit us with a thumbs up if you're watching us. I mean, this has got to be thumbs up worthy. Show history coming to you from Radio Row. This is our first ever show from Radio Row, right?
Yes,
anywhere, even like recorded.
It is.
Yeah.
First live show.
So there we go.
With the lights and everything.
I know.
This is.
I also like the lights in the background. I'm looking at the set. Like, I don't know, it has a cool feel to it that other people have lights, and it's great. It's great.
It's awesome. So cool to be here.
We do have some super chats. Do you want to get to that later or no?
We'll get to those in the third segment. But before we get there, let's talk about some other non-quarterback takeaways from what you heard from these guys today.
Yeah, huge takeaway for me. The Broncos, if they don't go quarterback in the first round, it's going to be right tackle or it's going to be pass rusher. Not only did George Paton say those are the two strengths of this draft, but then when talking about the Broncos, what the roster and what this roster needs, he said, obviously we need a right tackle, and then he said we need edge rushers. We need pass rushers. So we've talked about, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, we broke down the Broncos' biggest strengths outside of quarterback. Those are the two we said. That's what George Paton's identified, and he says it matches up well with this draft. So Broncos, especially if it's not in the first round, second and third round, right tackle and edge.
And we've talked about cornerback as well, but they're going to meet with Bryce Callahan's agent here, and that tells me, again, furthermore, that it is edge or right tackle early on, and that cornerback is kind of pushed down the list. And certainly if you re-sign Bryce Callahan, you feel pretty good about Pat Surtain, Ronald Darby, Bryce Callahan is your 1, 2, 3, with Michael Ojemudia being the cornerback 4 in the mix there. I think that's sort of that's where you can see kind of all the pieces lining up right now.
Just what's the contract for Bryce? And maybe that's something where he does need to hit the market and find out his value first, because when he plays, he's worth a lot of money. But
he's
the
terrific.
big question is when he plays.
And I think maybe one of the things that you're thinking about is that if the contract can be fair, with what you saw from Ojemudia late last season when he came in there, you feel confident that if Callahan does miss some time, that Ojemudia is ready to step up for a bigger role.
Yeah, I'm kind of hoping that George Paton takes a different approach to these injury-prone guys than John Elway did, just because it always felt like you're crossing your fingers. And crossing your fingers going into a season is such an uncomfortable feeling. You can't count on Bryce Callahan. It's nothing against the guy or the player. I really like Bryce Callahan, the player, when he's playing. But, in fact, you can count on him. You can count on him to miss games. And that is just not a comfortable place for me to be. John Elway was constantly doing this in free agency, in the draft, trying to get guys that you can get later in the draft, or trying to get guys that you can get a discount on because of their injury history. And then we sit over here and we panic because the injury history comes up. I mean, Bryce Callahan made it like a couple days in practice of his first season before he got hurt. Who else? There was a couple right tackles that they added to the mix who were injury prone that got injured. It's like
Juwan James literally had a major injury every other year before the Broncos signed him.
He was so injured that I forgot who he even was until just now.
Menelik Watson was always hurt in Oakland.
Yep, comes here, hurt. So I hope
even Donald Stevenson injury history too. I mean, this is something that had been going on for ages.
And you know what sucks is sometimes let's say you let Bryce walk, maybe he signs with the Packers and he stays healthy the whole year, and you're just thinking to yourself like, wow, how did we not pay him that $5 million? But at a certain point, you just have to be able to count on your roster, and of course injuries are going to happen, but you can't cross your fingers every year.
Right. Exactly. You can't. And one of the free agents the Broncos brought in that hasn't been hurt is Melvin Gordon. And that was something that I believe George Paton talked about today. Said we want him back. He pairs well with Javonte Williams, and they are talking to his representatives.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a price point thing. Now, Melvin has said has expressed a willingness to come back perhaps for less. He wants to be in Denver, and it's just a question. That may be a test the market, see what's out there, perhaps. But at least they can go in and they can have kind of a set of parameters as they go into the next month.
I'm curious where Broncos fans are at on Melvin Gordon right now. They were really cold, then they warmed up a little bit, then he had right as he was getting at his best level, he had a very costly fumble. So just let us know in the chat. Are you in or out on Melvin Gordon right now? Because I personally am in.
I think
price depending, but I'm in.
I'm going to guess here. They're in as long as he doesn't get the first carry.
Yep,
I think they're in with Javonte being the 1A part of the tandem, not Melvin being 1A, Javonte being 1A, being the one who's up first.
And that's what he would be. Melvin would be brought back in to be a really good complement to Javonte. It'd be the opposite of what it was last year, where they split 50-50 pretty much, but Melvin was always getting that first carry. It'd be the opposite, except I'd expect even Javonte to be 55-60% this year.
It's pretty split here. We've got no Gordon, no more Gordon, please. Love Melvin. I'm in. He single-handedly lost 3 games. I don't think that's true. I'm in regardless. Only want Melvin if we have Aaron or Russ. Same as RK, but lower price tag than currently. If Melvin gets less than $3 million a year, then sure. So it's honestly a pretty big mix here, and that's kind of where I thought. It's not – you can't – I don't know. To me, it's like he's a really good running back. He's a really good NFL running back, and he does a great job of making something out of nothing, which is one of Javonte's biggest weaknesses to this point in his career, in his very short career. He struggled. If there's something there, he's great at getting a ton out of something. Mm-hmm. He's not good at getting something out of nothing.
And I think he's helping Javonte read things better. Like one thing that Melvin Gordon is very advanced on compared to Javonte Williams is being able to read the holes as they develop and attack them. And that's something that I think Javonte can get better at just by watching Melvin and just by studying with him and especially now that we're there's going to be a greater outside zone emphasis, studying that as well and seeing seeing the tactics that Melvin Gordon has had success with.
Has Melvin done a lot of outside zone in his career?
They've had there were some outside zone elements way back at Wisconsin.
That I believe for sure.
Yes, and he was. I mean, again, it was the college level, but he was transcendent,
dominant. Yeah,
I mean. It would basically the 2 best guys in that scheme were him and Jonathan Taylor, and there was a little bit of distance to Monte Ball, who played in Denver.
Of course. I'm a little worried about Javonte from that standpoint. Not necessarily from his style or anything. Obviously, vision goes up a little bit in terms of importance when you're in the outside zone scheme. But I never like it, and we've talked about this before, you draft a guy for one system, and then he has to go instantly play in another system. And, this happened with Dalton Reisner. He's kind of the poster child of this take for me, is you actually drafted him for this current system, what you're going to be going into, which is outside zone, more zone, schemes, obviously the West Coast. And then he instantly has to switch into a different version of the West Coast, which uses a lot more power, and he just struggled. He was never the same guy that he was as a rookie. And so there's just never any guarantees that he's going to, flip the switch and all of a sudden be good. And again, like I said, vision becomes even more important. You got to find that lane, right? Pick it and go.
Can he pick it and go?
Hopefully not. But, you got to pick it and go. And we didn't see him do it that much last year. So.
Right. Yeah. It's a good point. Another guy, Noah Fant. George Paton would not commit on whether the team is picking up his 5th-year option. Yeah, Ryan's giving the yikes face right there. We saw Steve Keim, even with all the drama coming out today around Kyler Murray, he said, yes, of course we're picking up Kyler Murray's 5th-year option. And isn't that what you do with a guy who you love the 5th-year option for? What?
A guy that's not a bust.
Exactly. You instantly pick that up. Now, I'm not saying that Noah Fant is a bust right now.
I'm not either. But if you don't pick up the 5th, that means you thought he was a bust.
It's just it's disappointing in what that draft pick was.
But wasn't something similar said about Bradley Chubb in March of last year, and they picked it up? And then Paton said, quote, Fant's a really talented player, and we want him here for a long time, unquote. I think, right, but I think it's just, okay, they don't have to make that decision until May, and I think this is just a keep everything open. You never know. Maybe there's a tight end. Maybe Trey McBride falls into their lap, and they absolutely love him, and they end up picking him in the draft. But
if you're doing that, aren't you admitting that you don't, that Noah Fant's not?
No, you're saying like
that great.
You're saying he's a bust.
No, what you're saying then is not that he's a bust. That maybe you had just in the hypothetical, you had an ungodly grade on Trey McBride. Maybe you think he's the 5th best player in the draft overall, and he's sitting there in the 2nd round, and you just say, well, we had him this high. We're just going to pick him. I don't think that's likely. But just that's a sort of scenario. I think George Paton is one of those keep everything open until you have to make a decision, and they don't have to make the announcement on Fant until May. I think the fact that he said we want him here for a long time tells me that it's likely going to be he's brought back.
To me,
on the 5th-year option,
this is a hard and fast rule. If you don't pick up the 5th-year option, they were a bust, and even considering not picking it up tells me that it wasn't a hit. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
If you hit on the draft pick and you feel great about it, you don't think twice about picking up the 5th-year option. You pick it up as soon as you can.
Think about this. Think about the last 2 5th-year options the Broncos have picked up or have decided on. They decided no on Garrett Bowles. They should have decided yes. And they decided yes on Bradley Chubb. And right now, what the stats say, what the facts say, they should have said no. Now, George Paton talked about Bradley Chubb. He said this is going to be the first time that he's healthy going into the season in so long. That's
touch wood.
I was going to say that's so true. But remember, Bradley Chubb was healthy going into last year until
he wasn't.
Until he wasn't.
Well, then he also dealt with injuries even at OTAs as well.
That's what I'm saying. He was healthy even before, or he wasn't healthy before even the season started. So that's someone they're going to have to make a decision on him, not the 5th-year option because he's playing on that this year, but they're going to have to decide, are they going to pay him $20 million to be a guy on this team for the next 4 or 5 years?
And Paton did mention something about the tight ends in general, talked about having to be better in the run game, better as blockers as well. And I think probably talking a bit more about Albert Okwuegbunam, especially when we mentioned Melvin Gordon's fumble and how the root cause of that was against Kansas City. Okwuegbunam just absolutely whiffing there in that scenario down near the goal line. But I think that's
still can't fumble the ball.
Yeah, you can't fumble. You can't fumble the ball. It's not but. The fact, and something else that happened that I think is interesting, and you can even bring into the quarterback conversation, is how many times in the last 3 games you noticed just defenders pouring in to stop the run in a way that we didn't see in the first 14 games as well. And maybe there's something there to Drew Lock still struggling with pre-snap identification. I mean, that was the thing that got Brock Osweiler benched back in Week 17 of the 2015 season for Peyton Manning was he was struggling with pre-snap ID.
Yeah. I mean, it certainly didn't help, and teams felt very comfortable bringing guys into the box and bringing a lot of pressure towards Drew Lock, and you can kind of do both things at the same time, right? If you're willing to just bring bodies and you're saying, I don't care if it's a run or a pass, we're bringing bodies, then it makes it a lot easier to call the defense, and if your quarterback isn't diagnosing things fast enough, then it makes it really easy for the defense to say, you can commit to the run and to blitzing the quarterback at the same time, if you know what I'm saying.
Yes.
And that's what they were doing heavily.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And what were your guys' other takeaways today?
Nathaniel Hackett, man.
He's contagious, isn't he?
I can't get enough of this guy. I'm super excited for just the energy that he's going to bring to the team. The word that I just can't stop going back to is refreshing. It is so refreshing to have the leader of the Broncos bringing this type of energy. The way that he talks about guys, the way that he talks about coaching, the way that he's passionate about everything. Imagine if you're working at a place and things are not going well and your boss is also like really boring and dry and critical. And over time, especially when you aren't seeing personal success or team success, I imagine that can get really old. And I'm sure that's what happened with Vic Fangio. You know, by the end, I'm sure you guys heard it too. Players, coaches, everyone was complaining about Fangio. Then all of a sudden, the management changes, and you have this energetic, exciting guy who's showing you love, and he wants to give you a hug, and all these things. Like, it might be a little bit much at first, but over time and just in terms of a day-to-day going to work feel is going to be night and day difference for the Broncos. And I legitimately think that alone, forget any of the coaching stuff, the idea that people are going to enjoy going to work for the Broncos is going to make a massive difference. Now, I don't know how many wins that's worth, but I think it's almost unquantifiable because of the differences that happen after that, right? The second that guys are opening their eyes in the morning and saying, I'm ready to go to work, I'm excited to go to work today, can have effects that you can't even measure. And I think that Nathaniel Hackett is legitimately going to bring that to the Broncos.
Couldn't he be the perfect coach for a rebuilding year, if that's what the Broncos are looking at, is by, even though things are going really bad and they're 3-13 heading into week 18, at least it's a good place to be for the circumstances. And when talking about the Broncos, I think it's naive to think that there's no chance they don't rebuild this year. Where the quarterback spot is right now, where this coaching staff is right now, but man, Nathaniel Hackett could get them through this year. And then also, of course, he's a guy you could be with when you're winning as well. But that would be that he's the type of coach that if you're with Vic Fangio and you're rebuilding, man, that's going to be a brutal year. If you're with a guy like Nathaniel Hackett, you can make it through a year.
And you'd have a template for that, I think. Cincinnati with Zac Taylor back in 2019. As far as a young coach, a relatively young staff, there's a lot of common threads in kind of where the Bengals were and where the Broncos could be. Now, it's tough, and talking about is one thing. Going through it in Denver, where they really haven't had a season like that, at least not that anybody remembers, that's something different entirely. Face it, in Cincinnati, there's a little bit of a being accustomed to that over the years. They have those types of seasons every now and again, and you also, for better or for worse, you probably have the most patient ownership in the league in Cincinnati. We don't know what that's going to look like here as well.
Yeah.
And you may not. So in theory, it sounds great to have kind of a rebuilding type of year, especially if that's a long-term plan toward getting quarterback fixed next year in the draft, hopefully for a generation. But are you in an environment where you can pull that sort of season off? That's the question.
Yeah. I don't know. I get today talking to him, and really getting to be face-to-face with Nathaniel Hackett, it's not as corny as it comes off, at least for me. It's a little corny, for sure. Not to say he's not corny at all, but it feels so much more genuine when you're standing right next to him. Like,
and it is.
He's not doing a bit.
Right.
And if you're watching from a screen, it can literally look like he's doing a bit. He does, like, he feels like Ted Lasso. The amount of Ted Lasso energy coming off of him is crazy. But it's genuine. He's not acting. You know, that's actually who he is. And when you're standing right next to him, you get that feeling. Today was the first time I had that opportunity, and I couldn't get enough of it. It's real, authentic energy that comes from him.
I mean, he's making jokes with the media. He was, they asked him to stay in the middle, and he got real close. He's like, "Is this close enough to you guys?" He's joking around. He's having a good time. He gives off such positive energy.
Yeah,
things that Vic never would have done.
Yeah.
When he got up, he got 2 inches away from Troy Rank's face.
And Troy was like, "Great."
And then the best part is Troy, already had a question ready, and he was like, "George Paton says you like to make people feel uncomfortable." He's like, "Yep, just did it with you, Troy." Yeah, I mean, and that was cool too. Hearing that it's not all just sunshine and rainbows from him. He really likes to push people into uncomfortable places and make them, think from different ways. And he said, if we're all just comfortable, it doesn't force us to grow.
That too is the Ted Lasso kind of elan. Kind of empowering followers to become leaders, right? I think in the first season of Ted Lasso, when the team's picking on Nate, and he tells Roy, he's not going to do anything about it because he wants Roy to do something about it because it's his lock because he's the captain and he needs to lead.
Yep.
That's the sort of thing I could see Nathaniel Hackett doing completely.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I just I really like it. I really like the energy that he's bringing.
Even if it's a short-term pain for a long-term gain.
Totally.
Yeah.
All right. Also want to give.
Let's just hope there's no Nate Turncoat in that.
I know,
no
right?
spoilers. No spoilers.
Wait, you haven't seen season? Come on.
No, I've seen it. I've seen
Okay.
it. I'm just saying for
I haven't seen it, so I
think we're
appreciate that.
Well, I know.
Zach, are you ever going to see it?
I've seen a couple episodes, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
when does the whole thing of no spoilers stop? Because we're 6 months from the second season of Ted Lasso. I mean, can we talk about it yet?
I don't know.
At least I think you can talk about it, but you have to say spoilers and give people a chance to skip through.
So I can just leave now?
Yeah,
Okay.
you can go.
Okay.
I mean, we could have a
we'll
whole.
have someone else. Nikki's here. Can we get Nikki to take in?
I tried to get Nikki.
We could have a whole podcast about Nate in season 2, and I'm not going to spoil anymore. I'm just going to say that's it.
We could.
Well,
Yeah.
and Zach, I really want you to watch the show now because for me, it's like Nathaniel Hackett is like Ted Lasso, but you're going to see it the other way around. You're going to see Ted Lasso is like Nathaniel Hackett, and I want to hear that perspective.
Who's copying who? Here's an uncomfortable question.
Well, then Hackett was first.
Hackett was first.
But at the same time, has Hackett kind of even evolved a little bit to incorporate some of the Ted Lasso ethos? I mean, Ted Lasso as a show is so influential that you're going to probably see at some point a coach that is really like Ted Lasso.
I agree.
I mean, we're looking right at him.
I mean, you could see 10 years from now someone saying, I watched Ted Lasso, and that told me that I want to be a coach.
Yeah.
Yes.
And one of the things that I love about Nathaniel, and that's what you call him when Coach Hackett's around, meaning his dad, and you can call him Nate when his dad isn't around. But one of the things I love about him is he's unapologetically himself. And I think that's so important, especially in hard times in the NFL, is to be who you are and who you believe in.
He's also not going to pull the Jason Garrett, call me coach crap.
Yeah. Not to get too deep here, but not only is that important in coaching, it's just important in life.
Absolutely.
If you are just yourself, you will attract people who like that person,
right?
And you won't attract people who you don't want to deal with and don't want to be a part of it. But like that's exactly what. And I asked him that. I said, "You're doing things like very differently. This is a guy who hired a coach for coaches,
right?"
And I asked him, "How much did you think about this as you were coming up? And you thought one day I might have a chance to be a head coach. I'm going to do it my way." And he said, I don't know if it's as much about that as it is I have to be myself. This is who I am. Mm-hmm. He wants to surround himself with young, energetic people. So that's what he did in his coaching staff. He's not doing it the way everyone else did, but he's not thinking like I need to do it differently.
Right.
He's just doing what he wants to do. He reveres I'm blanking on the name. The coach.
Vieira.
John Vieira.
John Vieira. Or Vieira, I'm not sure.
They're college buddies.
Yeah, I mean, he reveres this guy. He thinks he's amazing. He thinks he's incredible. He's like, I want him on my staff. And guess what? He has the power to do that, and he brought him in, despite George Paton not having any idea what it's all about. He let him do it, which I like that about George Paton as well. But I love this about Nathaniel Hackett. He is Nathaniel Hackett, nothing else.
Yep.
And people in the comments are really glad to hear that. They're saying that it does come off that way on the screen, like you were saying, Ryan. So it's good to hear that it is very genuine and it isn't just something that he's putting on for the cameras.
I'm very confident in that.
Of course.
This is who Nathaniel Hackett is.
And this is the third time I've talked to him now in person, and yes, this is who he is.
And it's he's not it's so unforced.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's just really how he comes off. Speaking of authentic, if you want some authentic Denver style pizza, you gotta hit up Sexy Pizza. They've been in the Denver community for over 13 years now, and they have some delicious pizzas, including their philanthropies, which I think are really cool. Every pie donates a little bit to a Colorado nonprofit organization. These are specialty pies. They're delicious. You can get them in 16 inches, 12 inches, 18 inches. But make sure you check out Sexy Pizza. I personally love their green chili pizza. May says they have some great salads. So whatever you try out over there, hit up Sexy Pizza and enjoy that delicious, delicious pizza.
And you got to pair it with a Breck beer, of course, because Breck beer is delicious. Goes with pizza, really goes with anything. And we're out here in Indianapolis, so we got to check out the Breck beer locator to find out the closest place that has Breckenridge beer. Because last week in Colorado, boy, was it avalanche season with the cold. Now in Indy, we're talking 60s. It is strawberry sky season, but really you can't go wrong with any Breckenridge beer. So whether you're in Denver, if you're at the bar, come check out and get it. Of course, we have so many Breckenridge beers on tap. And then also, if you're not in Denver, not in Colorado, check out the Breck Beer Locator to get your Breckenridge beer.
Also, quickly, we're doing another DNVR Nuggets party bus. I know a lot of you guys did the Broncos ones with us this year, and the Nuggets ones are also a blast. But what's even better about the Nuggets one that we do is we also get a block of seats. So not only do you get to come to the bar, have some drinks, hang out, hop on the bus with all the DNVR family and go to the game, then when you're at the game, you also get to sit with those people and keep the party going, and then go back to the bar and keep the party going some more. So it'd be a great time. Check it out on DNVRlocker.com, where we host all of our merch. You can also get your tickets to the DNVR Nuggets party bus and game.
Yeah, that's coming up the end of March, correct?
There we go, yes. All right, let's jump into some of these Super Chats.
Our first Super Chat comes from Mr. Stewmeat. Thanks for your insights. Aloha, DNVR.
Oh, hello.
Aloha as well,
Thanks
yes.
for checking in.
Means hello.
That's what they say here in Indianapolis.
Yes.
Then we have Chance Greg, who said, trade for Baker, ? Also, appreciate y'all's viewpoint a lot.
Yeah, I can tell you
you.
what, I think Baker would like a trade out of Cleveland, and I think Cleveland would like to trade Baker.
Whoa.
The question is, though...
Tough?
Yes.
Check.
Intelligent?
Check.
Yes.
Accurate? Check.
how intelligent, I think, is what we bring into the equation.
Football intelligence, I think, definitely, that's high. If there's a thing you question, I think maybe it's the emotional intelligence, because he gets into these back and forths, these, this chirping with media that I think it would behoove him to step back. It doesn't do him any good to be sniping back and forth with Tony Grossi, for example.
Yeah. He's averaged 14 interceptions in the past 3 seasons. Yeah. Is that football intelligence, though?
I think he's got a little bit of hero syndrome.
I think his intelligence. I'm not saying his intelligence has come down, but his decision making on the football field, I think, has come down since he was a rookie, or since he entered the draft, in terms of how he's viewed.
Well, we're going to have to do a whole show about the other guys that the Broncos could trade for. He'll definitely be mentioned there.
I mean, basically, like with Baker Mayfield, it's too good to very good years and 2 shaky years. I mean, rookie year looked like he was about to become an elite quarterback. And then in year 3, he was up 26-8 touchdown interception ratio. It was terrific.
Yep.
I mean, it's
the other 2 years, we're talking 1-to-1 ratio. And you know what this reminds me of? This is Juwan James, just in a different conversation. Juwan James was 1 year on in terms of being healthy, 1 year off in terms of not being healthy. This is the exact same thing with Baker. 1 year being really good, 1 year of not being good at all. 1 year being really good, 1 year of not being good at all. That consistency, I mean, I guess he's certainly a guy that's in this equation right now.
What separates him from, say, a Sam Darnold is Sam Darnold has never really been good.
I just don't like that we're talking about these guys.
I hate that.
We're going to have to.
I don't want Sam Darnold, period. Okay, but Sam Darnold's never shown it. Baker at least has shown it in 2 seasons that he can be an effective quarterback. So it's like, all right, what went right here, what went wrong in these others? How do we prevent those bad years from happening again?
Accuracy, though, I don't know. In the 2 bad years, he was at 59.4% and 60.5%. And 60.5 was just last year.
What about the good years?
The good years, 62.8. I mean, we're not talking like 69 or anything, and 63.8. Nice. So good enough, but not anything where you're like, okay, well, we can overlook those bad years.
Yep. All right. What else we got? Super chats.
Well, going to your conversation that you guys were just having, a lot of the chat was talking about the possibility of Kyler Murray with everything going on. We have our PHNX guys out here. You want to tease a little bit?
Yeah, I think we're going to do a little mini show, a little DNVR PHNX crossover a little later.
They're hyped for it behind the camera.
Where we're going to try to pry Kyler from their fingertips.
Yep, and I think they're willing to just give him to the Broncos, so we'll take it.
It's easier to hold on to him, because he's so small, so it's going to be harder to rip him away.
What are you saying about small people, Ryan?
I'm saying that you can grip them easier.
That's probably
That's
true.
a weird
I'm
thing.
also saying the Broncos
Let's
have
move on from
they
that.
have no problem with small quarterbacks now, though.
That's
very
true.
true. That's
Yes.
very true. So maybe I am in the equation.
Okay. Jake here was the last super chat we have. He says, hey, guys, I live in Indy. Go to Kilroy's and get some breadsticks. And
Okay.
what round would you take a wide receiver if a good one falls like Dotson, Moore, Bell?
Man,
Not in the top 3.
not in. Yeah, I was going to say you can't do it in the first 2 days. You have too much invested. I mean, with Jerry Jeudy as a first-round pick, KJ Hamler was also brought up again. He's recovering well. And then you just invested tons in Courtland Sutton and Tim Patrick. It wouldn't make any sense.
I would say pick 96. That's about as early as you go.
Yeah.
Whenever that 96 is when they pick round 3, right?
And that's got to be someone special dropping to you.
Yeah, like just you're saying, okay, best player. He's the best player on our board. He's the best player by dozens of spots.
Right.
Then you do it.
Man, where would they even fit?
I mean, you're just not getting on the fit. Unless it's
It's a KJ Hamler replacement.
Right, or it's a Deebo Samuel role where he's going to be your backup running back that gets some, and then you can also put him on the field anywhere.
Fair enough. And that is it for Super Chats?
Yes, that is it.
All right, let's
right,
jump into the comment section.
Thank you guys. Also, keep hitting that thumbs up.
Yes, please. And we have some people tuning in on Twitter. If you're tuning in on Twitter or Periscope, jump over to our YouTube stream. We've all tweeted it out. It's also on the DNVR Broncos account, so go there and check that out. The live stream is going to be better. It also helps us more. And then also that's where the comment section is popping, so make sure to jump over on there.
All right, speaking of the comment section, you want to bring us into the comment section on the DNVR.com?
First one coming in from Hall of Famer Kendall Hinton says, just wanted to add my 2 cents when we talk about the perfect or percentage of fan base that doesn't want Rodgers. Would I like to have Rodgers on our team and be a Super Bowl threat? Yes. Do I want Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray, and probably even a rookie, especially one from next year instead of him? Yes, for several reasons. Will I be happy to have to deal with his shenanigans and negative stuff? No. Would I trade 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and a player like Jeudy for him if he could retire after 1 year and there may be a 40, 50% chance, 60% chance he retires after 2 years? We don't know after all. I really don't think I would. What camp do I fall in? LOL. Curious what you guys think. I bet there's a huge portion of Broncos fan base that likes Rodgers, but only wants Rodgers under very specific conditions or as like a 3rd or 4th option.
There's no, I mean, if you have specific conditions, you're just not getting him.
Also, and this is just common sense because you're not going to get Aaron Rodgers' word that he's playing 4 more years. I wouldn't imagine you would. No, you would get his word and a contract that would say, okay, if you come back next year, you're going to get paid $45, $50 million. That's his incentive to come back. But you are getting no guarantee. There is a chance that you trade 3 first-round picks, Jerry Jeudy, and 2 second-round picks, and he plays 1 year. And then you're burned if you don't win a Super Bowl. But you're not going to get a guarantee where, like, he writes in blood that he's going to play for 4 years. So it is a gamble.
Honestly, he's the type of weird guy that would maybe write something in blood.
He probably is how he signs things. You're right.
No, he writes it in gi.
Yeah.
From his mouth, he just throws up everywhere.
Come on.
Or I could go in a really bad direction.
Yeah,
but I'm
let's
not going
not.
to here. Yeah,
Diarrhea is what you're.
Easy.
Please,
I wasn't
let's
going
move
there. Zach.
We are on Radio Row. Let's not start talking about that.
Yeah, do we have to follow radio rules on Radio Row?
I think you can say the D word.
Oh.
You can say enema.
You can definitely say enema.
And so we're going to move on to Lou Drock says, hey, guys, some more quarterback thoughts. Based on, now he's giving some scenarios, realistic chances of acquiring, what you have to give up, contract value, and quality/potential quality.
Stop.
I think the best order of Broncos quarterbacks options is 1, Mitchell Trubisky.
Come on. What are we doing
2,
here?
Baker Mayfield. 3,
Okay.
Carson Wentz.
Oh, no.
4, Drew Lock, focus on 2023. 5, Kirk Cousins. 6, the draft. And 7, Marcus Mariota. What say you fine gentlemen on this order based on the criteria mentioned? Cheers. Enjoy the combine, Charlie.
Trubisky? Really? Number 1?
There was comments
No.
talking about Trubisky.
I would take him as option 5.
He's going to start for somebody this year.
Good for him.
My thing is, you should not have realistic chance of requiring him being in your combat or in your how we get this guy. You should be shooting for the stars, just like I think the Broncos are right now. You shouldn't be going for the guy that you're just going to easily be able to get. The guy you're going to easily be able to get is a guy you don't want, right?
Yep.
If a guy's just sitting there on the second week of free agency, you don't want him.
No.
So I would take him out because I do agree with you. Trubisky is a guy that you could easily get. What you have to give up for him, you don't have to give up a lot to get Mitchell Trubisky, but that's been the Broncos' issue at quarterback, is they haven't been willing to give up a lot for their quarterbacks. And so what have they got? They've got nothing. So that's why I just get rid of this list. I don't like this list. Contract value. He's going for the contract value play at quarterback. Look, I love you, Lou Drock. Don't go the value route at quarterback.
Zach loves you, but he's telling you to throw your list in the trash. All right. Last one here from Melbourne Broncos says, hey, guys, so who gets the final say on what player we draft at 9? Surely the coach has final say. Cheers.
It's really funny. We kind of talked about this in the first.
We did, but you guys didn't answer. I actually answered. I said it's got to be George Paton's call. You kind of said you think it should be Hackett's call, at least if we're talking about a quarterback. But in terms of drafting a player, let's say quarterback off the board.
Okay.
Who should have the final say?
George Paton. Quarterback's a different story.
And he has final say authority. I mean, that's
of course.
Basically, it's you bring in the thoughts of your scouts, you bring in the thoughts of your coaches, he brings in his own thoughts, and then he's got his decision.
What if like Nathaniel Hackett picks up the phone and tries to call in the pick? Would they ignore his call?
Well, there's probably one phone that they can reach to Las Vegas with, and you would guess if that's not sitting in front of George, it's sitting in front of whoever is responsible for making that call.
Well, we know that's
I'd trust Patrick Smythe with it.
We know Nathaniel Hackett's a Step Brothers guy, and I could see that being a scene as Step Brothers, where they both reach
Don't
for
touch
the phone.
my telephone. All right, that is going to wrap it up for us here from Radio Row here in Indianapolis. That was awesome.
It was.
This is great.
And we're not done.
And I was really scared about my volume. I thought everyone was going to be staring at me. No one stared at me.
Well, you're really loud in my ears, so I'm staring
But there's just enough chatter going around elsewhere surrounding us here, like behind us and off to the side. Everyone's kind of doing their own thing.
It is true, yeah.
People aren't tuning in?
I don't think we distracted them.
We had a live audience at first.
Also, by the way,
live audience of 3, they're all very tuned into us.
They're very
Yeah, I mean,
interested.
BK's sitting there having chips and a sandwich right now. And
Johnny's dialed into what we're talking about. Saul is for sure.
Oh, he's smiling now.
Maybe we'll get a little more attention if we go up to the working media room
where it's
and do a
very
show
quiet.
from there.
Yes, and we're all about attention.
I also call it the mortuary. Anyways, that's
Speaking
gonna
of attention, hit us with a like.
hit us with a thumbs up. We
That
do. We
does wonders
crave
for
your
us.
attention.
Yes.
Specifically, hit us with a like on your way out. We will be back here tomorrow with another show for you guys.
Morning. So stay tuned.
Stay tuned for a morning show tomorrow. Hopefully with some fun little tidbits of what we learned out on the town tonight. So stay tuned for that.
Catch more content on YouTube.
Yes, look out for YouTube. We're going to have some quick reaction videos and, like we mentioned, that collab show with the PHNX guys. So, again, thank you guys for tuning in. We'll talk to you tomorrow.